Good morning and welcome back to the Shooting the Catfish development vlog. It is Sunday, and for those who are new to the channel, Shooting the Catfish is a comedy RPG being made in RPG Maker MV. So let's get into my plans for this week. I've started a new job, as some of you may have known, so my schedule is now solid. I'm working Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, which means I've had to plan out my week around that. And so today I'm looking at editing last week's devlog and getting that uploaded, and then I'm going out to my parents for the afternoon we've got relatives up here. Tomorrow I'm going to be finishing off the castle level from last week. So I have a bunch of events I need to fix that were originally done when the game worked differently, back when it was in its demo stage. I've got to add lore to the bookshelves, so there's a bit of a narrative in the dungeon. I've got to rebalance the enemies, and there's also an NPC which I haven't touched yet in the revisions, who's an alpaca, so I've got to get his assets ready to go. Wednesday, I'm going to start work on the next part of the dungeon, which is Castle Part 2. It needs new tiles, and the map's going to need fixing once those tiles are updated. So that's what I'll be doing on Wednesday. Friday, I'm going to be designing the enemies and turning them into battlers, which is a process I haven't actually shown in any of my devlog videos because I've been updating old content. This is new content. I'll show how I design my characters for that sort of thing. And then of course on Saturday, I'll be editing and uploading this devlog. So that's my plan for this week, working around my new work schedule. Let's see how we go. But first of all, let's get this edit and upload done. Good afternoon, everybody. It is Monday, and man, I did a lot today. So let's get into it because it was a full-on day. I've done about 12 hours development, which is pretty nuts. First of all, with this map, I just added in the bookshelves, so they have some lore attached to them now. I also put in some mushrooms around the place, which ties into the lore for the area, and swapped out all of the treasure chests because they originally had items that didn't really have any meaning in the context of the game as it is now. The old chests were attached to mechanics and ideas from a much older version of the game. So that's all been updated. So, you know, that took a while getting all that sorted out across all of these maps, but it wasn't too bad. Then I also updated this little sprite for this NPC here, Captain Alpaca, who is a recurring character throughout this dungeon. You run into him 2 or 3 times, and he has his own little micro story which you discover as you talk to him. And along with his sprite, I of course updated his face. I think he's come up looking pretty alright. And lastly, and this was actually took quite a while, we have 2 more characters who have been added, and this is the optional boss fight for this particular dungeon. And you can see them down here. This is Heart and Soul from the game Soma Spirits by Torch 60 or Sergeant M, which was one of the games that inspired me to get into game development in the first place. And I got his permission to use these characters to, like most things in this area 2 years ago, and now they're fully in the game. So these are their character sprites, which are pretty basic. Then we also have their actual battler sprites. You know, this is Heart here. He's a pretty joyful little fella. And then there is also Soul, who is much more cynical and a bit more of a he's a cynic. I don't know what else you'd call him. A little more down to earth, I suppose. A little less positive. So I got their battlers done. And then I also had to do some portraits for them, which you can see here. I quickly knocked these together in about 10-15 minutes. They're based on the faces from the box art. So I actually worked on the trailer for this game, so I'm pretty familiar with these characters, though I did use some reference material for these headshots because I wanted them to look pretty official and not redesign them too much like I have with some other characters. So I got all that up and running. Then I also added in the actual fight and got that programmed, although they don't currently have specifications. So this is inside their house, which you get a key from. It's a 2-step process to get the key to this house. You find a key to a sewer grate in the next part of the dungeon. You can bring it back here, go deeper into the dungeon, get the last 2 weapons, the ultimate weapons, I guess you'd say, and you also get a key that allows you to come in here and talk to these guys, who have a little conversation about stuff as they do. Don't need to read that. And then you have your fight with them, like so. And originally I was actually going to have them be 2 separate characters, but I've done something to the engine really early on, and for some reason I can select the different characters with the mouse, but I can't with the arrow keys or with a controller. I'm not entirely sure what's causing that. I know I did something like a couple of years ago that broke the engine in that regard and I haven't been able to work out a solution. So I might go on and make these two separate characters that you fight, but at the moment it's just the one. And then once you defeat them, you get given the last of the Nimbin figures that are in the game. And the way it's set up, you can trigger the fight through by talking to either of them. They both have the same dialogue, but after you beat them, of course, they have separate dialogue based on their personalities. But you find them in this hut here, which is based off the design that they have in their game Soma Spirit. So that's all the stuff I've done today. It's been, it was a lot. It's been a long day, and I got, like I said, heaps done, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. So I'm not going to be touching the game at all tomorrow, but I will be, because I'm working, but I will be on Wednesday, and I'll be digging into the next part of the dungeon. So that's something to look forward to. Good morning, it is Wednesday, and today I am working on the second part of New Folk Castle. So this acts as the, I guess you'd say, second chapter of this dungeon, because the dungeon's split into 3 distinct parts. The way this one's set up, as you can see, there's no enemies in here. It's quite a small one, so you have a linear path up through the middle here, and then there's also these 2 towers on the side. And the way these towers work is there's actually an underground, actually this is where you come in from the previous part of the dungeon, but there's these 2 sections that lead you down into, where is it? Here. So this is the underside of the actual tower. So there's going to be an optional boss in the middle of this bridge here, and you can have an option of either fighting them or you can go underneath and skip them entirely. And there's also going to be some hidden items up here, which you also reach by coming through here. So this is kind of inspired by the second part of Boletaria Castle in Demon Souls. Got like another little part up here, which all this needs to be redone. So the other thing that needs to happen is, because the idea is as you go through the castle, you're making your way up into the snowy mountains, which is why the leaves are turning more like autumn colors here based on the original graphics. But with the story changes that have happened since this was designed, I really want to replace a lot of these with mushrooms. So there's going to be increasingly more and more mushrooms the further up into the mountains you go, snow and mushrooms. So that's something I've got to think about as well. So this one actually has quite a bit of redesigning to do, even though it's not that many maps all together. So this will be an interesting one. And there's definitely a lot of other spit and polish that needs to be added to here. Alright, it is lunchtime now, and I've got these new tiles into the dungeon and have noticed, much like the last dungeon that I did some modifications to the tiles with, shit's kind of broken. So I've changed the color of the grass here, which is fine, because you're getting higher up in the mountains, it's allowed to change a bit. What's less cool is if we zoom in, you can see we have fridges everywhere, we have TVs, we have half of a table, we have mushrooms growing out of the walls. We've got these weird orange lines showing up, which I'm not sure what's causing that. And there's another corner of a table here with it's janked up. So most of it's thankfully alright, but I mean this is an easy fix. But yeah, there's definitely some shenanigans going on here, and I need to tidy up these maps a bit, because yeah, they're a bit, well, the exterior at least is a bit of a shit show. Good afternoon. I think I got it. I have these maps all tidied up now. I've got these little mushrooms popping up. Here in the main castle section, the exterior, got a bunch more mushrooms around. Pillars have been fixed, no more fridges. Just looks a lot more interesting, and like I said, the further you get up, the more common the mushrooms become, to really sell that idea that as you make your way through the castle, there's an infection that's being spread. These rooms are much the same, just a couple more little mushrooms for extra detail, and same with this place. And the other big change was I just filled in some, there's a lot of black space in this underground section, and it just looked a little bland, a little plain, even though you only get to walk up through this center point here, aside from these 2 little deviations off to the sides. I wanted to make it look a little bit bigger, and I figured having this like gross sewage underneath was a good way of doing that. And yeah, other than that, it's just this little prison room. But yeah, the maps are all fixed up and tidied up. So that's going to be it for today. Good afternoon, everybody. It is Friday. I've had a pretty good day today, pretty productive. I've only got 5 individual enemies made for this next part of the game, which might be the last enemies in the game, actually, outside of the final couple of bosses. It's a small area, so we don't need a huge variety of enemy types here, but we've got the funky bird, is what I'm calling it. because it's a bird covered in fungus, as everything is at this point in the game. The mushel, which is a cross between a mushroom and a shell. I don't know if you remember, it was a Garfield and Friends that had the little egg that'd walk around with its legs sticking out. It's kind of like that, but a mushroom. And a little bit of bleeding going on there, a little bit of mushroom goop coming out. Then we got the Cordyceps, who is got one giant, kind of like a hat. I don't know, I like the look of this guy, and he's got his his hand out doing a thing with a knife. He's I guess kind of like the Savvy Stabber. He's just like, by this point they're just out of control mushroom people, as well as the Assorticeps, who is going to be guarding in the prison that you'll be able to go into for some optional NPC dialogue. Might only be one of these, not or two, we'll see, but they're not going to be very common. And then lastly, the optional boss that you can avoid by going underground, which is the Cordyceps. A lot of these guys are based on the word Cordyceps, so this is a cassowary that Cordyceps have got infected in. So you can either fight this guy or you can avoid him. He's completely optional. Yeah, so these are all the enemies that I have planned for the second part of the dungeon, and this is also where I'll be leaving off this week. So while I'm showing off a bit of the process of these guys actually being created, I would like to thank, as always, my patrons, in particular my $5 patron, Lone Wolf 123. Thank you as always for your support. I would like to announce that the $5 patron level is changing. In the past, you have got an exclusive little demo that I was making just for patrons of that level. I'm going to stop that now. Instead, every month you'll get an upload of my source files. So if you want to dig through the code or my eventing or my art, it's all going to be there. If you want to make your own games based on my assets, like fan games or whatever, you can do that. It's all there, legit. You have access to it. So that's what I'll be giving away for my $5 patrons now. And that's going to continue on to my next project, which I'm planning to be a made in GB Studio, the Game Boy development software that's now available. And then as well as the next project after this one, which will be my last RPG Maker project. And I'm hoping to make the most visually impressive RPG Maker game ever. That's my goal with that particular one. But more on that later. So thank you for watching the video. Subscribe if you haven't, get us a like, because I'm getting those traffics coming in, and it's awesome. People are finding out about the game through YouTube more than they are through anything else, which is awesome. And yeah, check out my Patreon if you want a more in-depth write-ups on progress and access to other goodies. So thank you as always. Have a fantastic day and a fantastic week. I'll catch you next time. Peace out, and as always, have a good one.